Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into a book that, well, it sparked a huge shift for millions thinking about money. I'm talking about Robert T. Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Came out back in '97. And it's this, blend of personal finance and self-help. Our mission here is simple. Pull out the biggest insights, those real nuggets of knowledge, maybe some surprising stuff, to help you see money and wealth in a, well, fundamentally different way.
Yeah, and what's so clever about it, I think, is the frame he uses, these two father figures, right? There's his actual dad, the poor dad, and then his friend's dad, the rich dad. And both guys, hardworking, educated, but their views on money, success,
Yeah.
totally opposite ends of the spectrum. And that's what we'll unpack, those key differences.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that. I'm really curious about the foundations. What really set these two dads apart from the get-go? How did their beliefs shape, everything about how they handled money?
It sounds simple, but it runs deep. So for the poor dad, the job,
Mm.
that was everything. Most important, like the ultimate security blanket, money advice. Pretty much be safe, save money, stick it in the bank.
The traditional route.
Exactly. And education. Go to school for a good job. That was the path. Assets, honestly, not really on his radar, not part of the conversation.
Yeah.
And taxes.
Yeah.
Well, his view was kind of just, you got to pay them, so just pay them.
Okay. So how did the rich dad flip that script? What was his angle?
Completely different perspective. A job for him was just a temporary step. A way to learn, maybe get some capital, but not the end goal. His advice was more like, take calculated risks, invest money, make it grow.
Active, not passive.
Right. And education wasn't just about degrees. It was about learning how money works. Financial literacy, assets. Oh, they were absolutely key to financial freedom, the main thing. And taxes weren't just something to pay, but something to understand. Learn how to reduce them legally. That was his approach.
Wow, okay. You can really see how those core beliefs just send you down completely different roads financially. So as we dive into the lessons Kiyosaki pulls from this, you, listening, might want to think about which perspective feels more familiar and maybe why that difference really matters for your own future.
Absolutely. And these lessons, they're less like a strict do this, then do that guide,
Yeah.
and much more about shifting your whole mindset, your financial intelligence.
Right. So let's kick off with lesson one. The rich don't work for money. Now, my poor dad, like many, always said, get a secure job. That's the standard advice, isn't it? But Rich Dad says, make money work for you. What does that actually mean in practice? It sounds good, but...
It's fundamental. It's about changing your relationship with your time and your income instead of just trading hours for dollars where if you stop working, the money stops.
Yeah.
It's about building or buying things, assets that generate income independently. So money keeps coming in, even if you're not actively punching a clock. Think of it like building little money-making machines.
Okay, gotcha. Passive income streams, basically.
Essentially, yes. Which leads right into lesson two. Financial education is key. He argues that, well, regular schools, they teach you how to be a good employee, how to get a job.
But not how to manage money or build wealth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So understanding how money actually works, the rules of the game, how it flows, the psychology that's way more critical than just working harder at a job, it's about literacy, financial smarts.
Yeah, makes sense. Being empowered by knowing the rules.
Precisely. And that knowledge is crucial for lesson three. Know the difference. Assets versus liabilities. This is huge in the book. An asset, simply put, puts money into your pocket, like a rental property bringing in rent, or stocks paying dividends, or a business generating profit.
Okay, puts money in.
Right. And a liability takes money out of your pocket. Think loans you have to pay back, maybe a fancy car that loses value and costs a lot in upkeep.
Yeah.
Even sometimes a really big house, depending on the mortgage, taxes, maintenance, it can drain cash constantly.
So the big takeaway is crystal clear. To grow rich, buy assets, not liabilities. That really reframes how you look at spending, doesn't it? Is this thing going to feed me or eat my money?
Exactly. It's a powerful filter.
Which kind of leads into lesson four. Mind your own business. Now, this doesn't mean quit your day job immediately, right?
Yeah.
He encourages building something yours on the side. What sort of things is he talking about?
Yeah, that's a good clarification. It's not necessarily about ditching your job tomorrow. It's about cultivating your own asset column, even while you're employed. So this could be investing in real estate, building a stock portfolio, maybe starting a small side business like selling something online, creating a course, stuff like that. The point is to shift from just being an employee to also being an owner, an investor in your own right.
Building your own thing alongside the main gig.
Right. And that connects nicely to lesson 5, the power of corporations. This is where Kiyosaki points out how Wealthier individuals often structure things differently to legally reduce taxes and protect what they build using companies.
Ah, okay. This is where it gets really interesting for a lot of people, I bet. So it's not about shady tax evasion, but understanding that the system has different rules for businesses versus employees.
Exactly. A business, for instance, can often pay for certain expenses, maybe business-related travel or education, sometimes even health costs before taxes are calculated. An individual usually pays for those things with after-tax money. It's a structural difference.
So it highlights how important financial literacy is, not just for earning, but for, well, keeping and growing your money legally and smartly.
Absolutely. It's about knowing the rules.
Yep.
And finally, lesson 6. Work to learn, not to earn. The focus here shifts away from just chasing the highest paycheck. It's more about choosing jobs or experiences based on the skills you'll gain. Skills like sales, communication, leadership, negotiation, and definitely investing. Because those skills, you take them with you anywhere. They make you valuable regardless of the job market.
Hmm. That's a really interesting perspective. Build skills that build wealth, not just collect a salary. Okay, so we've really unpacked these core ideas, these big mindset shifts. Let's talk about the book itself, its impact, its value. What are its biggest strengths? Why did it resonate so much?
Well, there are a few key reasons Rich Dad Poor Dad became such a bestseller. First, the language is super simple, very clear. Makes complex stuff feel accessible. It's packed with stories, real-life examples, which makes it relatable, helps the ideas stick. And it really pushes a practical, kind of action-oriented mindset about money. It motivates you to think differently. Plus, it's useful for pretty much any age, but especially, I think, for students or young adults just starting out, figuring out their financial path.
Okay, that makes sense. Simple, story-driven, motivational. But like any book that challenges the status quo, it's had its critics too, right? Where do people sometimes find fault? Or what are its limitations?
That's fair. It's definitely not a detailed how-to investment guide. There aren't many specific strategies. It's much more about the big ideas, the philosophy, which, for some people, feels a bit too general, maybe lacking concrete steps.
More why than how.
Kinda, yeah. Also, some of the ideas like embracing risk or using debt, that might not sit well with everyone's personality or situation. It's not one size fits all. And like we said, it focuses heavily on mindset over, say, detailed financial analysis or market data. Oh, and some readers feel it repeats the main points quite a bit. If you get the core concept early, it might feel a little repetitive later on.
Okay, valid points. Mindset over mechanics, potentially repetitive for some.
Right. So considering all the strengths and the limitations, who is this book really for? The source material suggests it's great for students wanting to understand money beyond just earning it, young adults starting careers, maybe questioning that traditional safe job path, anyone feeling kind of stuck in that paycheck-to-paycheck cycle, and basically anyone who genuinely wants to build wealth and escape what Kiyosaki famously calls the rat race, that cycle of working just to cover bills, never really getting ahead.
Right, the hamster wheel. So what's the bottom line for you, the listener? The final verdict seems pretty clear. Rich Dad, Poor Dad isn't your A to Z investment manual. Don't expect step-by-step instructions. But it acts as this incredibly powerful catalyst for changing your whole mindset about money. Like our sources say, it gives you something more powerful, a new way to think about money. It's a lens, a framework.
Yeah, it really challenges you to look beyond just earning a salary. So maybe the final thought to leave you with is this. Thinking about the stark differences, we talk about the poor dad versus the rich dad way of thinking. How could actively seeking out that financial education, really learning to tell assets from liabilities, how could that start to reshape your financial future? Even if it means questioning some pretty deep-seated beliefs you might have about security and money.